What's happening, guys, and welcome to the campfire, where we sit around and talk about the news that happened in the week between Wednesday, October 30th and Tuesday, November 5th. Let's get started, shall we? There's a lot to cover today. EA has announced that the free-to-play Command & Conquer, which was currently in closed alpha, has been cancelled, and the development studio behind it, BioWare Victory, has been disbanded. EA put out a statement this week saying, "Thank you for your participation over the past few months in Command & Conquer's closed alpha test. It has been much appreciated, and you have been instrumental in defining what a Command & Conquer game should and should not be. Part of being in a creative team is the understanding that not all of your choices are going to work out. In this case, we have shifted away from campaign mode and built an economy-based multiplayer experience. Your feedback from the alpha trial is clear. We are not making the game you want to play. After much difficult deliberation, we have decided to cease production on this game. Although we deeply respect the hard work done by our talented team, ultimately it is about getting the game you expect and deserve. They will be refunding anyone who spent money on the alpha, and said they will try to find new positions for the team members of BioWare Victory, who one thinks will be out of a job." Well, I'm not sure if this is laziness by a publisher, a bizarre misunderstanding of what was going on, or just EA being pouty about what had happened. For those of you who don't know, this Command & Conquer came out with a free-to-play system. This allowed you to buy generals, much like you had in Command & Conquer Generals, which is always considered to be one of the best Command & Conquer games. The game was entirely multiplayer, and you started off with a select number of generals, and you could buy generals with actual money, hence the free-to-play system. But there was a lot of complaints about the fact that the premium generals were much stronger, much more powerful than the default generals, essentially making the game pay to win. People were outraged by this. They sent in lots of reports, lots of disagreements. And in response, EA goes, "Screw you, screw the company that made it," fires everyone and puts them out on the street and cancels the entire project. This is insane, people. This was a fully formed game. It was in closed alpha public testing. That means all the assets were in place. The only thing that was missing were minor bug fixes and the addition of some assets like extra generals, more troops, more units, that sort of thing. The fact that you would take a nearly fully formed game and just ball it up and toss it is ridiculous. Now, if the free-to-play system wasn't working, people genuinely enjoyed this game. They liked it. They could have easily just removed the free-to-play system, removed the microtransactions, thrown all the generals in a pile, maybe add a progression system, and released a multiplayer-only Command & Conquer full set. Just a boxed release. Without the box, of course, it'd be digital. And that would have probably made them tons and kept many devs employed. But instead, EA throws a little temper tantrum over the fact that people didn't like their free-to-play microtransactions and found them unbalanced, which they were. Fires an entire company. For what reason, who knows? Disbanding a development team is probably one of the saddest things. And EA has probably been responsible for more dev layoffs than any other company. Purchasing dev teams and then running them into the ground is EA's specialty. It's a sad day, but maybe something will come of it. And missahippy, from missahippy here to all those people who lost their jobs, I sincerely hope you land on your feet, and probably with a much better publisher behind your back. I wish you all well. DualShock 4 controllers have gone on sale a full 2 weeks before the PS4. Rocking a $60 price tag, you can go pick up your controller today. As of the time of this video going up, it is still a full week until the PS4 launches. Some people are wondering why this happened, believing that Sony forgot to place a hold on these products. I personally do not believe such a thing is a case. I think they did it on purpose as a promotional gag to basically squeeze a little extra money out of you while they can. But, if you really want that second PS4 controller, go and pick one up. Project Red is sticking with their pledge of being a DRM-free studio by announcing The Witcher 3 will have no DRM in any region or platform, with the exception of Steam, which will have the minimum requirements to be on Steam. This is a good thing, I do believe. It really will work well. Obviously, you cannot put anything on Steam without Steam adding their own DRM. This is just part and parcel of the deal. The reason we can get the deals on Steam we get is because of Valve's DRM, which is known around the industry as being some of the best DRM you can get. But other than that, they are sending it to Valve with no DRM. If you buy it from them, it will have no DRM in any region or platform, which I believe is a good thing. In an interview with OXM, Final Fantasy XIII's directors said that they have considered letting a Western developer take over the reins for the entire Final Fantasy franchise. Eidos seems to be the most likely candidate since Square Enix bought the studio a while back, giving them access to Western developers. Square Enix says in the interview, "We're open to the idea of having an entity outside of the publisher take over. It certainly has been discussed in the company to allow a studio like Eidos to take over the series." Quote, "If we were to find the right team of developers, with the right group of people who really wanted to do it and had the right game, then it would definitely be possible for a Western developer to create a numbered Final Fantasy game." Now, I'm sure that many diehard Final Fantasy fans, especially in Japan, with Japan's standard kind of closed ranks when it comes to traditional and pure Japanese games, much like the Final Fantasy series, are really flipping about this comment. But personally, I think it's a great idea, because personally, I feel like what Square Enix is currently doing with the Final Fantasy series is getting stale, repetitive, boring. We have had 3 games from a game that wasn't particularly that good to begin with. Final Fantasy XIII I thought was horrible and has to go as my least favorite game in the Final Fantasy series. I mean, to go from a game like Final Fantasy XII, which, granted, people in Final Fantasy will debate and argue over which game's their favorite in a while, but mechanically, not so much story-wise, but mechanically, Final Fantasy XII was my favorite game. To have that semi-open world where you could go out and level, and completely removing the random battles just made that game fantastic, and being able to go to regions that you couldn't necessarily handle yet was fantastic. I really enjoyed that game's mechanics and how they worked. Final Fantasy XIII, they immediately closed ranks, and for the first, 20 hours of that game, if you're good, you're stuck in a hallway. And then they made a second and a third. The story was convoluted and hard to follow, which some people say about other Final Fantasy games, but this is the one where I've always had trouble doing that. Always understood the story behind the Final Fantasy games. This one was just completely impossible to follow. So yes, I think it's a good thing. I think they need new blood working on the Final Fantasy series, and if they want to give it to Eidos, especially after Deus Ex, I say go for it. Can't hurt. Lake Youngston, the EA CFO, has confirmed that Titanfall will not be coming to the PlayStation 4 or any Sony device ever. In fact, the game will have a semi-exclusive to Microsoft and PC markets such as Steam. Basically just Microsoft and Steam. This comes to a shock to the development team behind Titanfall, as they were not informed of this, and this was entirely a publisher decision. And granted, it is the publisher's decision. Exclusivity deals like this, are always publisher based. They're never development based. The development team always wants to see their game go out to as many people as possible. And it's just another thing. So PS4 users, you will not be getting Titanfall. My apologies. The guys over at Humble have announced that the Humble Bundle will no longer be providing Steam keys with purchase. Humble now requires, if you want your games on Steam, to log into your Steam account, and your games will be added directly without keys of any type. I myself have mixed feelings about this. I personally understand where Humble is coming from with this. They have had a massive problem with people abusing the pay-what-you-want scene by paying rock-bottom prices for these Steam keys and then reselling them for a profit. And that's A, wrong, and B, it really messes up the heart of what Humble does for charity. You gotta remember, these games are purchased for charity. And it's a problem to pay $1 for, 5 or 6 Steam keys, resell them for $5 each. It's also a problem when major developers, like right now, Warner Brothers is running one. And some great games there you can get at rock bottom prices. But Warner Brothers does not want, and other major publishers do not want, people to have the ability to buy these Steam keys at rock bottom prices, and then when they're trying to run a sale later on, they will have competition with people who have bought 3 and 4 sets of these keys and reselling them at $5 a key for major titles. Like right now, Arkham City and Arkham Asylum are on, as well as Fear games, are on sale right now on the Humble Bundle. And those can easily be purchased and resold. At the same time, I too have, whenever I receive a duplicate key, I've bought a Humble and I've wanted all but one of the games I've already owned. I would then do a giveaway on my Facebook page. Just throw the key up and whoever wants it can have it. And I won't be able to do that anymore. I now have to eat that. But, again, that's quickly thrown away because it's pay what you want. You're getting 4, 5, sometimes 6 games. Pay what you feel is an appropriate price for the games you want. If there's only one game you want, pay what you feel is an appropriate price for that one game. And all in all, I feel that this is something Humble had to do. It's a bit of a bother. I personally am bothered by this. But at the same time, I understand where they're coming from. I understand that there are people abusing the system, and you have to do something to try and fix that. They had done something earlier, but at the same time, requiring a $1 minimum purchase to receive Steam keys isn't going to deter people. Again, you're paying $1 to get 4 games usually for the minimum, and that's just not going to stop anyone, because you can pay $1 for 4 games, grab the keys, and resell those 4 games for $20. Ta-da, $19 profit. That's if you only buy one set. With alternate email accounts and alternate accounts, which takes nothing to set up, you could easily boost that profit greatly. And that's why people have just been outright abusing this system. So this had to stop. It had to come to an end eventually, and I feel it's just something that has to be done. So you can no longer give these keys to your friends, but at the same time, it's pay what you want. Tell your friends to go pick this up. Either way, I fully support Humble in what they're doing, and I fully support Humble in what they've done for charity. I think they're doing a great job, and this needs to continue. Gabe Newell announced that the Steam user base has grown 35% in the past year, growing their fan base to over 65 million users, and surpassing the previously paragon of online user base that is Xbox Live. I'd like to throw out a big congratulations to Valve and Steam and to all its users. Keep chugging, guys. 2 weeks before the launch of the PlayStation 4, Sony is finally giving details about the PS4's full capabilities at launch. Sony states that there will be a day one update to add most of the game capture and sharing functionality. Out of the box, it will not include sleep mode, wireless headset support, or controller sharing button. It will also not allow sharing to YouTube, and streams on Twitch and Ustream will not be archived, pretty much removing any usefulness from that software. And just to make the lives of YouTubers a little more difficult, HDMI external-based capture will not work at launch, but it is said that they will fix that at an undisclosed later date. And just for a laugh, normally an internet connection would be required to use a Blu-ray and DVD player, but if you're one of the people who jumped on the PS4 ship because Xbox made you have an internet connection and you have none, you can call customer service, along with the millions of other people doing this, and eventually they will send you a disc to activate your Blu-ray and DVD player. So there's a lot to cover here, so let's talk about this. For starters, let me sum this up the best way I can. When you open up your box, plug in your system, and start up your PS4 for the first time, if you decline that initial response, you will have no media services of any kind. It will not support your MP3s, it will not support any video files you add, it will not allow you to stream at all, and a lot of other media services will be out of the box declined, not available on this platform. They will allow a day one update, which if you have internet and if you accept the update, will allow you to stream to Twitch and Ustream. And they have announced that they have added in the fix to that day one update to allow you to use MP3 files and some local video files. But if you are a YouTuber like myself, the PS4 has pretty much screwed you. You cannot archive your streaming sessions, which prevents you from doing any post commentary and putting it up on YouTube or anything later. You cannot upload directly to YouTube. It actually has not said anything about these features coming at a later date, so chances are it's not coming at all. It is not a replacement for a capture card in any way. And now, since we brought up capture cards are not going to be working on the PlayStation 4. They have said that they will try to add in something to fix this, but as of right now, it won't. And the reason it won't is because Sony has added a line of code to pretty much all of their Blu-ray players, and this includes the PS4, that prevents you from doing an HDMI out capture. This encoding will not let you do it at all, and this even means the games, since they are rendered on Blu-ray, you cannot do an external capture for. Again, removing all functionality for YouTubers who want to share their gameplay. Also, it will not support the controller sharing button, which was one of their biggest functionalities at E3 that they pushed. Wireless headset support, which I find is ridiculous. Why can't your machine do wireless headset support out of the box? There's no excuse for that at all. And sleep mode, which I personally don't care about, but again, that's something they touted, something they said would be in the machine, and it is not. Also, your Blu-ray and DVD player, this is probably the funniest thing, you have to go online to activate it, or it won't work. And this is not something that's inherent in the hardware. You can go pick up any Sony Blu-ray DVD player, any Blu-ray DVD player of any type, and it'll work as soon as you plug it in. Apparently, somehow Sony requires that you go online to activate this hardware. And if you can't, call customer service, and if they're not busy, which they will be immediately after launch, I feel like half from the people calling to get the disc and half from the people calling to complain about the multitude of systems that aren't there. When you finally get through to this massively large filled customer service room, they will then mail you a disc at some point after they've mailed out the probably millions of people ahead of you, which will allow you to activate it offline. This is honestly ridiculous. I don't know if this is because of them waiting and trying to best Xbox with features and just naming things off the cuff, or from them trying to get their console out before Xbox and cutting these corners and, oh, we'll throw that in later. Oh, by the way, development team, we said we'd have this. I know you can't do it, but just try and we'll throw it in later. This is unacceptable. If you say your machine is capable of doing something, it must be able to do it out of the box. And there is no excuse for Sony doing this, especially with the day one update. Microsoft does have an excuse. They were pretty much forced to change their entire user interface and business model over the course of a couple months. Literally, once you pack in manufacturing time, shipping time, they had maybe a month and a half, two, to change this entire interface system which they had developed. That is impossible. It can't be done. And it's because you wanted something different. And they listened and they changed it. But they can't. So we've done it in a patch, which is going to do immediately after. Again, that's kind of an excuse because they had a vision. It was ready. It was built. It was put forth. And you guys went, I don't like that. And they go, okay, we're going to change it, but you got to work with us a little. Sony had none of that. Sony, this is what they've advertised. This is what they've put out since their launch date. Some of these features were in their first launch title. The share button was one of the first things they announced. Wireless headsets? That's been around since a generation, since the beginning of the Xbox 360 and PS3 life cycle. This is nonsense. There's no reason these things shouldn't be supported. And I feel like, especially with a lot of the streaming technology, they simply said they could do it because Xbox said they could do it. So they felt they had to add it. And because they just had to add it off the cuff at the end, it's not ready yet. This console war has forced these companies to produce subadequate products on launch date. This is unacceptable. If you release a console, you must release a finished product. You cannot hand me a prototype and say we'll fix it later. You cannot expect a user to pay $400, $600 for a prototype. That's not acceptable. It's not possible. It's not consumer friendly. Stand up. Don't buy either console if you don't like on launch. Wait for them to release these patches. Don't buy it until they release these patches, and show them that it is not acceptable to release an unfinished prototype at launch and expect users to pay full price for it. That's just my opinions on the subject. This is something I feel strongly about. I hope you guys do too. That brings it into this week's campfire. A lot of news this week. I would like to point out that there is a lot of interesting Nintendo news going on this week, but I will not cover it here. I'm currently running a boycott on Nintendo. All Nintendo products news. You will not see a Nintendo Let's Play or any Nintendo news item here until they diminish their copyright claims and their current policy of claiming anything that has any photo or picture or image of any Nintendo product, even if it's covered under the fair use doctrine. For those of you who don't know, you can sure look it up. There's 1,000 people who have covered Nintendo's false claims all over the internet. So they are currently on boycott. But you need to go look it up. There is some interesting Nintendo news out there this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's campfire. I'm Missahippy. And if you did enjoy this week's campfire, make sure to give that like button a hug. Share me around. Click that subscribe button. It's all greatly appreciated. I appreciate you more than anything, my loyal viewers. I will see you guys next week with next week's news and comments. Big things are happening. New consoles about to launch. A lot of news coming. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.